Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana and Porshèa embarking on the journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Currently, we're reading Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston, and today we're discussing chapters 31 through 33.
But right before we get into all of that, perhaps you want to think about what we went through previously on Wizard Team. So we started out the last episode with Amari seeking the help of Julia Farsight to speak with a werewolf ghost. So many identities wrapped up in that werewolf ghost. Like, that's a lot. And he's also an old person. Like, he was around 700 years ago. So this is like an ancient werewolf ghost. Like, that's just, his life, his afterlife, a lot. That's a lot to go through.
I wonder if he's still if he can still turn into a
change.
werewolf or is
Yeah.
affected by the moon.
Yeah.
That'd be very interesting.
Where's the lore? I just need okay. So we found out that he cannot share what that memory of the time freeze was with them because it was stolen from him by a wily young wizard boy named Dylan Van Helsing. And so then Amari and Elsie are now in a place where they're like, well, now we have to go figure out not only if we can recover this memory, but like, what did Dylan do to get the memory in the first place? And so right whenever they're trying to figure that out, Amari gets summoned into the Great Game once again. And she is put into an illusion that gives her everything that she wants, but she refuses the option that it gives her because she knows that this is she's being lured into something that she actually is not real, and the real people that she actually loves and is trying to help are all waiting for her outside of this whole fake scheme. So because she is able to get out of this whole illusion before Dylan does, she receives the victor's ring and she wins the round. But as she's leaving, she notices that a monster is crawling up on towards Dylan, and she decides to be a hero. For what? Just being a good person. It sounds like a nightmare to me.
She
goes up and
is who
above.
she is.
She is a Michelle Obama of when they go low, we go high. And I just, Miss Michelle, we all have different ways to go through that. And
she heard that quote and she felt that.
Yeah. She was like, she's like Michael Jordan. Like Amari, whenever she heard that quote, she was like, and I took that personally.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
She took that as a call to action by the First Lady. She was like, yes, yeah. She saves Dylan, and he's stuck in his own illusion, and she hears him call out her name, and I'm like, this is even worse. Like, this is sad. And when she goes to save him, we know Amari don't think too hard about things. She just does things a lot. And instead of just being like, oh, let me just grab him, teleport, I don't know, or move, figure out a way out of here, she just instantly fixes her hand around her ring, her Great Game ring. And that means that she's teleporting right back to where she left, which was her dorm room. With Elsie, except for now, Elsie's not the only one in her dorm room. There's also Laura and Jaden. So what does freaking Dylan do when he realizes he's in a room with his sister and Amari's friends? Oh, I'm gonna shadow work them. And so they all get bopped after having seen Dylan. And Amari has to talk down this mad child and be like, don't go in on them or whatever. And uses this opportunity to interrogate him the way that she talked about doing with Fiona and Magnus without them actually knowing what she was saying. And he says that he didn't do it because he simply does not have the juice, which finally he admits whenever he doesn't have it. And he tells her that she can have access to what he found when he stole from Thomas Fletcher, the werewolf, if she goes to the Department of Dreams and Nightmares, and that there's the password is something that she can figure out. Also, he considers them even for some reason because he left Amari to die, but then she saved him from dying, and somehow they're even because he told her nothing. He told her a department to go to. That's all he told her. So that's also a strike on Dylan's part. I'm gonna tally all the Van Helsing strikes. Just know that. And he
I
sends
know a lot.
once she gets there, they have so many tallies. Like I'm like, I mean like mentally, am I actually keeping track? No. But please know, anytime we're talking about them, I'm going to note it. Um,
Mhm.
the memory that she finally is able to get access to in the Department of Dreams and Nightmares reveals that the time freeze was caused by a device, but it's something that the villains are impervious to. So they can, like, you've seen Amari this whole time. She can walk through a time freeze, as can, as could Vladimir and Moreau. And so Amari is stuck on, well, this is definitely clearly magicians. So who is the magician who could cast a time freeze and escape in the way that all the other magicians that she knows or has seen in contact with the time freeze has been able to interact with the time freeze. And that's where we leave off and start on this episode of Wizard Team.
Yeah, so much. And now we're like, truly, we're in the end game. So Amari, Elsie, and Lara are coming back from the Department of Dreams and Nightmares, and they're trying to sneak past Bertha. And the way to do this is to pretend like it's to carry a bunch of books and pretend like you're sleepy. So you pretend. So basically, you're like, we were in the library studying and we slept past curfew. However, Bertha, for one, sees right through them. So I don't know how much this works, so much as she just like lets it go. Um, but also it doesn't matter because they've been summoned to the chief's office by Bane. So things are bad. Also, like, where is Chief Crow, by the way? Like, we have not seen her almost
The
this
last
whole
time we
time.
saw Chief Crow was like I think right after like the time like frame where like Jaden and them had their ceremonies or whatever. Like it was that
Yeah.
something happened and they needed to go to her office, and that was the last time I remember seeing Chief Crow.
But like they keep going into her office or like up to her floor and she's not around. And I guess maybe they got her doing something else or she's like not. I don't know. But
Summoned.
it's
They're like, oh, we're
interesting.
not gonna
They're just
CC
like,
Chief
"Oh, we
Crow
can
on
use
this
your
one.
stuff. We'll just
Yeah.
use your office." Wild. Anyway, so they go back up. They're on Lucy, the elevator, and I love how she's like enabling them on their way, like right before the doors open to Bertha. She's like, "All right, you guys, like look sleepy," you know what I mean? Like, but then when it's time when they've been summoned, she's like, "Sorry, I can't disobey orders." So immediately, like we're back up. So she's for the kids until she can't be, but I'm sure that's like all the elevators. Um,
Except for the stuffy one, because Lord Paddlesworth or whatever, he enjoys being Kensington. He
Kensington,
enjoys being
yeah,
superior.
right, right. So he's like, "Oh, you're being summoned up. Got you." Like he's not. That's not a problem for him.
Unless you're an
So
elite, and then he'll be like, "Ooh, I am
I'm
so
so sorry I
sorry."
have to do this. He does like Amari. So they get to the floor and it's crawling with agents. None of them are Magnus or Fiona. So then there's like this moment where Amari's kind of realizing that she doesn't have any adults here to look out for her and who have her best interests in mind. So it just kind of like ramps up the tension because she's not gonna have like an advocate for her in this situation. Um, so Director Van Helsing is waiting for them, and so he leads them out of the elevator and down the hall. They pass all of these agents, and all of them have their like hands on their stun sticks as if Amari is gonna
These
do
like
something.
13-year-olds are so dangerous.
I'm like,
Oh
these
my
are
god.
children. And then like what kind of broke my heart a little bit is like right after that, like so Amari like notices and then she's like trying to see it from their perspective and is like, yeah, well, magicians are kind of dangerous. And I'm just like, no,
I'm
no.
sorry. After
Because
all
when
the
have you
like
ever proven
revelation,
to be like not that you have to prove like
yeah, it's supposed to be
you shouldn't have to
proven
prove that.
you're supposed to be like what considered innocent until proved guilty. You're not supposed to be showing that you're innocent. You're supposed to be like showing that you're not
Supposed to be
guilty.
innocent. Yeah, and then also,
Yeah.
like but even at this point, like, it's not like I mean, yes, she has, like, this level of celebrity that I think is a little, like, outsized and unnecessary, but I feel like at this point that she's not someone who's trying to hurt people or is, like, dangerous in that way, and so the fact that they're still, like, treating her that way is, like, really irritating, and the fact that she feels like she has to justify that for them and, like, see their side of things when they're not, like, bothering to see her side of things is, like, sucky.
I just feel like two things. One thing I feel is that like I wonder how much of that is her trying to like she's naturally empathetic, but I wonder also how much that is of her like thinking about what she would do if she once she becomes a full agent is an adult, like how she would treat the situation. So she's trying to justify it in that in her head as well, like if she might
Mhm,
be called to act similarly in the future. But also I just I like it just feel bad and like heart sore about this a bit because of like how much the like revelations around that have been coming out recently about like the quiet on set with Nickelodeon and how
mhm,
much it is like it's put on kids to be more trusting of adults than they honestly adults need to be given, and adults take
mhm,
advantage of that. And I like really it hurts for me to like Amari's putting way more like, generally, Amari puts way too much empathy in people that she shouldn't put empathy in, but
mhm,
especially in adults, like, y'all are the adults in this situation. Y'all have the fully grown cerebral core like, all that you need to have. They are the children, and you're taking advantage of them having a natural empathy or, like, wanting to reason with you, and
mhm,
I really hate that for her. Like, she shouldn't feel inclined to be that way. If anything, she should be more, um thoughtful to like holding them responsible for like the things they do that is wrong because they're the adults
mhm.
and they know better.
Right, and she gets there with, like, some people, but just not, like, everyone. Like, she always wants to see the other side, or not once, like, she always feels like she has to. Um, yeah. So they get to the conference room, and right before they walk in, Amari takes both Elsie and Lara's hands, so they're, like, holding hands on their way into the conference room, um, which, like, Elsie is, terrified, and she's, like, trembling, and then Lara is just kinda, like, ready to face whatever. Um, Inside the conference room is Bane, with 2 other wraiths, and then Harlow's kinda, like, standing in the corner. Um, and he has them sit down and is like, "We wanna know what you've been up to." So, basically, like, wanting them to confess what they've been doing as opposed to just setting out what the accusations are and letting them, either defend themselves or, uh, you know, deny or, like, agree
Confirm.
to confirm what those charges or whatever are. Instead, they're like, "We know what you've been doing, so tell us," which is like, so clearly you don't know what we've been doing. You just are
You're
being so
hoping
smart
that we'll dig a
to
hole that
just
we can get ourselves out
say.
of.
Mhm. Um, so of course, Amari and Elsie are like, "Nah." But then Director Van Helsing turns to Lara and is like, "You'll do it, won't you?" We find out that he charged her with spying on Amari, in order to keep her junior agent status. So, and then Amari feels silly for trusting her, but like partially she should, but also she's been going back and forth this whole time. It's not like she's just been blindly trusting Laura, I wouldn't say. And I
There's been
think
a
it's
level of
hard to
like wary, like she's kind of like
yeah.
she's not red herring like Lara. She's not like like
Mhm.
straight up like if something bad happens, it was Lara that she's doing that for
Right.
Dylan. His others are twin,
Right.
but
But, like,
it's like
any
it's
chance
similar, but
she
not quite.
gets yeah, but she any moment that she gets where she feels like Lara might be up to something else or is, like, not quite as, like may not be as trustworthy, as she's like trying to seem. She definitely holds on to it for a bit. She lets it go faster than like she doesn't like do a whole lot to like fully confirm it, but she does kind of. I don't know. I feel like she's been on the fence about Lara and is kind of still on the fence about her to this point. But also like I could see this still be it's like not surprising but disappointing, you know what I mean? And in this situation like angering because it's like you're literally spilling all the tea. You're telling them about the investigation. You're telling them about the break-in into the supernatural world of Congress. You're talking about Amari not freezing in the time freeze because she's a magician. Like all of those things that you're telling these people are like, yeah, it makes me mad that you're not doing this, but it's also not 100% a surprise.
I think I don't yeah. I think that if I guess like in a like a general way, like did Amari have on her bingo card for the year that that Lara was going to be a narc? No, but she might have had on her bingo card that Lara was not to be completely trusted. Like
Right. Like something in there is not. It's like I don't know exactly how you're gonna stab me in the back, but I wouldn't be surprised if you did. Like,
like it's on the card, but it's not. It's like it's not a free space. It's like a
right?
legit like it could happen.
It
We'll
could
see if it
happen.
gets knocked out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Um. So all of this, like Bane, kind of takes as proof of magician culpability in the time freeze. Meanwhile, Director Van Helsing is taking this moment to like make it about him because that's what he does. So he's talking about like, oh, we should never have let magicians in the bureau, and I denounce the magicians in my own family. And it's like, bro, like, shut up, no one cares. And so then after all that, Lara reveals the information about like what they just found out. The uh about the information that they just found out about the time stone, and that being like the source of the freeze. Um She then tells Bane Amari's motives, which is wanting to end the time freeze, wake Merlin back up so he can be back in charge. But Bane kind of ignores that and decides that Amari is just inherently bad and she can't help but want power for herself. Um yeah, it's a very weird, not weird, but it's like gross because he's like, I believe you want to be good, but you're a magician and so that's not possible for you, even if you like want to help people subconsciously in there's like this selfish whatever, and I'm like, sounds like you're projecting to me, but who am I, you know? um
We talked about the like counselors and psychologists for the like Wizard Boy, but we didn't talk about that for the Bureau. And I'm like, is there like, or if we have, it's been a long time. Where is the counseling department, and how many psychological evaluations are people getting before they're able to do like these high-powered positions? And like,
right.
how regularly are they receiving those? Because I know for sure one has not been completed for Bane for centuries,
No.
if
And
ever.
everybody knows that he's salty and like angry and just like hate, you know what I mean? Like everyone knows he's full of hate. So then like why are you letting him be in positions where he can use that hate against the people that he hates? Not to use that word like multiple times in one sentence, but it
It's
just doesn't
funny
make
because
any sense.
I remember when we were talking about him like a few episodes ago, Kishana was like, "Sounds like a regular old politician to me," and I'm like, "Sadly, me."
Yeah, that's true. It's very true.
This is
I mean,
why we
I
are where we
understand,
are in
like
our state of the world. This is
yeah,
why we are
it's
here.
not
Like, yeah,
it's not like our, real life is much better. Um, but you would hope where there's magic, there would be, like, sense, but clearly not.
that's part of the whimsy is the not making sense. You
Right.
know? Yeah.
For good or for bad. Uh, so they've also decided that Elsie is to be blamed as well. So it's not just like, oh, Amari is in trouble for this. It's Amari and Elsie. Um I just want to like point out that Harlow calls Elsie witless. I'm just like, Elsie Rodriguez lacks wit.
So here's my thing about Harlow. I just feel like Harlow knows at all times that it's about building a narrative, about
Mhm.
storytelling, about being the first one on the scene to proclaim what happened. And so I think, like, sure, will it hold up if it actually ends up being printed, and then like they show articles about the whiz kid Elsie who has demonstrated all these things and has invented all these items? Will Witless stand up? No. But for now, that's the narrative that Harlow is trying to present, and she's the adult in the room talking
Mhm.
while the child is over there trembling and not saying a word. So she gets to say what she wants to say, and it gets to be the official word because she's the
Right.
official.
Right. She's the worst. Speaking of that, she's so Bane is kind of like, oh, like, Harlow, tell them what you're gonna do or whatever. But Harlow still hasn't quite figured it out because again, like we know that Amari has a lot of clout. And there are a lot of people on
I'm
his
laughing at
side.
Harlow being the like narrative guard dog for Bane, where he's like, yeah, yeah, trying to like boost her up, like, yeah, yeah, tell him what you're gonna do.
Tell
Like,
him what you
that's
gonna do, tell him.
hilarious.
And she's like, I don't know yet, but I could tell him menacingly that I don't know. Like she's trying to figure out how to spin the story in a way that will come out putting Amari, like taking that support from Amari, and also like garnering support for Bane. But in the meantime, while they try to figure that out, they'll be confined into their dorm room. And they can't leave, or like they can't come and go at all. They're just stuck in there. Um, and that's how that chapter ends. So,
I love that like the last sentence that Harlow says in there is that actions have consequences, and boy howdy does that work for the rest of this book.
come on. It's yeah. So it's the one thing about like it because it's like usually the structure of the story, but it's just like dang, things just going wrong, bad after bad, just
Worsa and worsa.
worse and worse. Um, okay, so chapter 32. So Amari and Elsie are taken to their room by those two wraiths. And because of like the nature of them, like they make this kind of like staticky noise when they walk, so it like kind of alerts the other kids that something's happening. And so now as they're walking down the hall, all these kids have their heads popped out of their rooms and they're like watching them be taken to their room. Of course, like Bear and Tristan and those kind of folks are happy to see it because they're miserable and don't have
They're
anything better to do.
haters.
Um,
It also sounds like a version of tinnitus. And can you imagine just like living your good jolly life and then all of a sudden you're beset by like the worst tinnitus you've ever heard in your
I
life?
know.
Like, and then you're a wraith, so you know that your presence brings people misery. So like it's
Mhm.
just it's just
And like I get it. Like I do feel sympathy for wraiths as
yeah,
like a concept and for like how they were um
created.
yeah, but also you just gotta like not take that out on other people. Um so Bertha tries to step in and is like, y'all aren't allowed down here. I'll take them to their rooms. But the wraiths are very rude. They like kind of shove her out of the way and they're like, whatever. But I did want to note that she's like trying to step in, trying to like protect them to the extent that she can. Which again is very strange compared to the last book.
She
But
was
she's
like
actually
it's
like,
but I mean in a way she's exerting her authority, which she was doing last year to the trainees, but this time she's
mhm,
actually doing it on their behalf rather than at them. But
yeah,
like it's weird because I'm like, we haven't seen how Bertha interacts with like Jaden or like other
right.
people in his
But you know
class.
what I
And I
think
think that's what
is
makes it worse. So we can't even just say like I feel like Amari's attributing it to like, oh, it's because we're not early trainee level this year, so we get more privileges. But I'm like, but like I
I
don't
don't
know
think
where you're
that's
getting
it.
that from because I've not seen how she interacts with other trainees.
Right. What I think it might be, um, and I say this just because of like experience with Ami recently, but like, or not recently, just like this year. I think what she does is she like scares them so they don't try to step out of line. And then like once they're thoroughly scared, she lets up because she's like, it's not that deep, but I just want to make sure that y'all are like, like I think that might be what it is like scaring them into not like wilding, and then once they've established that Bertha's scary and she's not to be messed with, then she like lets things slide. And actually, like
Or
when
does she do that to everyone? That's
that's what I'm
my
saying. I don't
question.
know. That's what I'm saying. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that's like it's not. It could be one theory. That's not my
Mhm.
like definitely my theory, but it's an option. Like it could be that she like when the new kids are new, she's like, all right,
Scared
here's what we're
straight.
not gonna do. And
I'm
then
gonna
when
put down the
as
rules of the
they've like
house.
because they've been there and like are more established in the especially because I'm like the bureau is not necessarily safe by any means, and so it could especially after curfew, all types of things could be going on. So, um, it's possible she's just like really hard on them and like doesn't have a lot of flexibility when they first get there, so that then when they get older and have been there more times, she can at least trust that they know what's going on. Again, I don't know if that's true. That's just it could be what's happening. I think also though in terms of like cuz we are really just seeing it in terms of Amari, I do think she has some uh I mean, not that she had it last book cuz it didn't seem like it, but this book it's definitely showing that she has some like um disagreement about how she's being treated and is one of the few people who are still remembering that she's a kid.
Mhm.
And so is feeling like the way that Amari is being treated isn't fair, and so I'm not gonna like add to that.
Add to it. Yeah, I could see that in, like, especially if, like, she had that slight prejudice last year, like, or whatever, like, it wasn't, like, a full-blown
Mhm,
bigotry, but it was, like, a prejudice, and she was,
mhm.
like, being very enforcing, like, because of that prejudice, and then if she was kind of like that, that agent, I forget the actual name for that role, but the one that whenever Mari was doing the trainee challenge or whatever, and she had to go to the wing where there was like the jungle or whatever and
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah,
habitat.
yeah.
And then
Uh-huh.
the person who was in the Jeep or whatever was like, "Oh, you're not bad. You're not doing anything bad with your magic." And she saw Mari's magic in action, and
Mhm.
she was like, "This is not what everyone's been banging it out to be." And
Right.
so maybe Bertha was similar in like seeing Amari in action over the year kinda took, and then also seeing how Amari's, like, on Erg and, like, how other people are reacting to, like, the treatment of, like, unwanted and magicians. She's just like, "Y'all are like, this child, she's a child. She
She's a
is not
child.
doing all of
Yeah.
that y'all saying she doing. This
And
is
that's
not
what it
that
feels
bad."
like is mostly she's just like, "This is a kid." Like, it's not whether she's a magician or whatever, like, she's a kid. So, like, yeah, she's gonna do silly stuff or, like, yeah, she needs to be watched to an extent, but not, like, persecuted the way that she's being persecuted and treated the way she's being treated. Um, so yeah, it's interesting. Um, so they get into the room. Elsie is, like, determined to stay optimistic. She's like, "Look, all we gotta do is solve the time freeze before morning."
I just wanna note this is the first time Elsie's been in both
Yes,
of these chapters. This is
she
the
has not
first
been
time
it's the
Elsie
first
has
time she's
uttered
spoken.
a word.
Mhm. She didn't speak at all in the last chapter. Um, but now she's like, "All right, look." But it's possible, like, one, she was terrified, but also it's possible in her head that she's like, "Okay, what are we gonna do? Like, let's
She's like, "I'm observing on my
let's
highest
make
alert
some."
of observation, and I'm gonna take this
Exactly, like,
information, and I'm gonna use it as soon as I have opportunity to use it." I get it.
exactly.
As an observant, introverted child, I
Mhm.
completely understand, but at the same time, I'm like, it bothers me a little bit because I'm like, "Elsie, my girl, my G."
I think at
Uh,
one point she might have, like, maybe hissed at Lara, you know what I mean? It was like, "What are you doing?" Like, when she was snitching,
yeah,
but that was
but
maybe it.
that was the extent, and I'm like, Elsie, can we stand up for Amari a little bit more, like, in
She's
front
a
of other
little
people and
she
not just when you're alone with her?
well, the
Because
thing is, though,
honestly,
is
as
that
a
it's not
friend, that can be
necessarily
frustrating.
yeah, but I also don't know that it's necessarily, like, like, it's partially standing up for Amari, but they're both on the same par of, like, being in trouble, and
Yeah,
I think that Elsie hasn't interacted with Bane or Harlow,
before
really.
is
Maybe
like,
Harlow a little, but barely until now, and so I think there's, like I get why she wouldn't be. I appreciate though that she's not then after all that coming in here and being like, "Oh, there's nothing we can do. Woe is us," type situation. She's like, "Okay, no, we can we can still make this work." You know what I mean? Like when she has her own space and is not. um, being intimidated. So yeah, so she's like, we just got to solve the time freeze before morning. Easy, easy peasy. So she has this theory that the stone likely, so like she was talking about the time grenades that they have and how they take time to recharge. Like can be like depending on how strong they are, they can take like weeks, months to recharge. So her theory is that this time stone likely takes centuries to recharge. So it probably was that the Night Brothers, when they used it the first time against the werewolves, it was as a last resort because they were caught off guard, and that after they used it then they couldn't use it again. So the theory is that's why this is the second time, the only like other time that it's happened, because they couldn't like it just wouldn't work. Um
It's funny, it's like it sounds like it's like solar powered, but it needs like a certain amount of solar energy or something, and it's like it takes
mhm,
like 700 years to build up the level of solar. And it's like, like what
exactly.
is what is it charging on? What is the like
Exactly. What is
actual
the thing?
energy
Is it just that you have to leave it alone and then it's like slowly like I don't know.
regenerate?
Yeah. Mhm. And so, like, Director Van Helsing has been sent to kinda look for this stone, but Elsie is saying, like, they won't find it if they, because it has to be in the Supernatural World Congress, because it has to be, like, proximity is what matters. Um, so Amari is like, "I can get it," but they don't have a way to get to it because Lara has the transporter.
Here on Wizard Team, it's no surprise that we love books. We also love supporting the independent bookstores.
With our bookshop affiliate link, you can not only get all the books on your TBR, but you can support indie bookstores and B&C at the same time.
And if you're not sure what you want, that ain't no problem. Check out our The Plot Thickens list full of recommendations from none other than Porshèa herself.
Head to www.bookshop.org/shop/Black Nerds Create to treat your shelves.
Treat your shelves.
Oh, that's nice. That's clever.
Oh my goodness.
That's clever. Love B&C content? Want to see the tricks behind the treats? Every month we drop behind the scenes and bonus content on our Patreon. Baddies at any tier get access to notes, process videos, and podcast outtakes. Support us on Patreon at any tier by going to patreon.com/blacknerdscreate. So, before they can figure out their next steps, it's time for another great game challenge.
The way that I will, this is a moment I just wanted to talk like once more. How inconvenient the great game has been
It's
this
so it's
whole book.
it's the worst. It was like I remember reading this the first time and I was getting so I was getting so stressed out. I was like, now's not the time. Like, why are you calling her? It's just really
It's
not.
like
And
a
I
bad
do
ex or
like,
something. Like, why are you texting me? Like,
come
what are we?
on.
What?
Like what? It's like Bugaboo. That's what it's like. It's like the song Bugaboo. It's just like, why? Why?
Call was it? Oh man, it's been so long. So to make the email stop. Is it AOL? Call AOL to make the
Yeah,
email
make
stop because
yep.
you. That's
Hmm.
what it is. But I also feel like it's like it's for me. The title of the book is Amari and the Great Game. So like this whole time, I was like prepared when I first started the book for the Great Game to take the center of the like story and it be more about the like competition of the Great Game than it being about once we get into the book about like the whole time freeze. But it's actually the opposite. And
Right.
so it's like, and as being a person who enjoys a mystery, like the mystery of the World Congress is more, it's like I get why that takes precedent because it is a, like intriguing, like let's figure out what's going on, how does like just twists and turns about who we think how they're involved and all that. And then so it makes the fact that it's named and the Great Game is kind of feels like it's like a tongue-in-cheek kind of like um thing kind of in the way that Amari and the Night Brothers being about the Night Brothers. It's not really about them. It's like it
Right.
is in a way about the Night Brothers, but it's not really.
That's
So
not
now it makes me think about like, is every book gonna be that way? Is like the thing that's on the title not actually the thing that's gonna be the center of the story? Is gonna
right.
every time we get another Amari story, that happens to be a the subplot. Like if it weren't the title, would you think about it as a subplot,
Right.
basically?
I mean, I'm curious because I also think that like Great Game is so like not vague is not the word, but it's broad. Like, yes, that's the name of that like specific uh like challenge or
Challenge.
whatever.
Mhm.
But it in some ways, like this whole thing is a great game, right? Like she's
Mhm.
trying to figure out this again, it's a mystery, but then there's like people like pulling the strings and like putting pieces on the board or whatever that she doesn't know and she can't see and she can't figure out. So it kind of feels like a double,
Entendre.
there's levels to it.
Mhm. Same with, like, the Minor Brothers to an extent too, because it's like,
Yeah.
it's not about them, like, F. Vladimir Moreau, but, like, it is about, like, Amari's relationship with, like, figuring out her being a magician and the, like,
Mhm.
weight of what the Knight brothers did to, like, that reputation for her to have to, like, now become like, figure that out. So it is, but it
Yeah.
isn't kinda thing, and
Exactly.
same thing for the great. So again,
It's
is this the
clever. I'm
thing? Like, is this a
curious.
scheme that we should keep keeping our eye on every time we get a
Mhm.
title? And since we don't know what the Despicable Wonders are yet, we can't really go there right now, but, like, maybe when we start reading that, but oh, well, I mean, we'll already have our theories by the time we record our reactions to that
Right.
book because we'll have read it before we actually start recording on it. But it would be fun. I guess a thing to like note to ourselves, like what we actually think
Think the
the role
wonders
of
are.
Despicable Wonders is going to be whenever before we finish the book.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that would be interesting cuz like yeah, this is interesting. And the great game really it was definitely the most stressful part of reading this book the first time. I was just like, "Again?" Like,
And it's like
okay.
it's the timing is always
It's
inopportune.
always bad. It's always
It's
when she
never when
needs to be
Amari's
doing
kicking her
something
feet up
else.
and like looking down at her phone, like, oh, I got a
Yeah.
couple of minutes.
And,
Like,
like,
no.
luckily they don't take that long.
Hmm.
So it's not like it completely takes you out of what, like, she needed to be doing, but also, um, they're happening really fast because they just had one. They just had one. They went to the, dream thing, they went to Bane, and then they got called and then she got called again immediately. It's all in the same day. And then also, like, it's a mental thing, right? Like, you have to, like, shift your whole, like, brain from, "Okay, I'm figuring out the time freeze, I'm, like, here doing this," and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, shit, like, I have to figure out how to get this ring and how to survive, and I don't have a lot of time to do those things," and then as soon as that's done, I gotta focus back. It's, like, too many things happening, but it's, like, diverting her, uh, focus.
Attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big
Um,
things popping, big things dropping, like,
man.
same time.
It's really I really hate this for her. So she teleports into this room. Um it's like real like it's got couches and like this portrait of this dwarf and like all this stuff. Um the room is separated by or Dylan is there too, but they're separated by a wall of glass. And the victor's ring is in it. They can't figure out how to get to it. Dylan shoots fireballs and shadows at it because that's his those are his two tricks. But there's no way to get to it. So they realize that they're on King Olaf's train. And King Olaf is a dwarf who built Cibola, which is the city of gold under Las Vegas. He also apparently was gonna build a city of silver. But before that, he was trying to build a train to rival the underground or the underwater railways of Atlantis. Um, However, he did not know what he was doing. So
That
he was
is
just building all willy-nilly and had to abandon the project because of something we're gonna find out really quickly um in a second. But like he's just like, look, I don't know. He was good at one thing and thought he could do other things.
is that not about a capitalist? Like, is that
Mhm.
not the trajectory of a Rockefeller or a
Mhm.
freaking, like, Vanderbilt? Like, "Oh, I'm good at running train," like, running a good, quote, unquote,
Right.
running a railroad. Let me go over here and run a bank. Like, let me also go over here and run real estate. Like,
Right.
I'm a rich man. Of course, I'm a genius. Okay,
It's like, relax. You don't have
sure.
to do
And
all
now you're
that.
bankrupt. And
Right.
now everyone
Or
knows your
you built a
hubris.
train that goes right past the Kraken's cave.
The
Like,
train to nowhere. The train to like, and also like, okay, Elon Musk. Okay, Bezos. Like, it's
literally,
just every single one of them.
literally
Yeah.
all of them. Their dang spaceships or whatever. Just silly.
Look, SpaceX. Why y'all
Yeah.
renaming? Like, why y'all you get in office and you rename NASA to Space Force? Are we serious? Are
I'm like, y'all
we?
are they're not. They're not. They're just bored and have too much money. Anyway, one thing I wanted to point out. One thing I wanted to point out is that Amari's getting all this information from Dylan. And it's really interesting in this, like, in this particular game. And I think that it's like, especially, it's not that far from their last conversation. It's only been a few hours since their last conversation. It's really interesting to me how they work together in this, like, challenge, even though they're working against each other. So, like, she's looking around and trying to find things, right? She's speaking out loud. He's giving her backstory on the train and like what they're doing and where they are, right? So they're kind of back in. It reminds me of I think it was the first trial for junior agent tryouts, and they were like partners or whatever. It kind of makes me think of that. Where they like kind of fall into this dynamic that they've had. And I wonder, because the other times it's been like, oh, or it's on site. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
they've
but
been
even
attacking
whenever they were
people.
in like like Alexander the Great kind of thing, like Amari was like, "It's linen." You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah,
were like
but it was
expositioning
also,
each
even
other.
before that though, he was like attacking her. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it was not that she's still kind of like, I think she's just somebody who thinks out loud. Um, so like, it just felt like the dynamic shifted slightly, like not all the way, not like they're like cool again, but it just is like after having that conversation about like their relationship, it kind of shifted, not completely, but just a little bit of like, oh, I'm gonna sure, and like, because Dylan could have easily been like, oh, I'm not telling you what we're, you know what I mean? Like, he clearly knows more about this situation than she does, and he kind of offers it up.
I'm seeing it as like, I don't know. I'm seeing it as like this man. I'm kind of putting Lannisters in here, and I could be wrong putting Lannisters in here, but like the Lannister pays their debts, and
Mhm.
like Dylan knows he's in debt to like Amari. He said
Mm.
they were fair, but it's like you're in debt to Amari,
Right.
like you know it. So I feel like he feels like he likes Amari. He's been reminded through the conversation, like you're saying, like that's to go back into the dynamic that he enjoys having with Amari. But I also think that he's a Lannister pays their debts kind of thing. Like I feel like he's like,
Mm.
I mean, I know I owe her. Like I owe her
Right.
for real. So
Out
I
of
may as
reciprocity.
well like drop a couple of bars of knowledge here.
Mhm. And then there's like a moment where he's like, we could have been a team. He's just like disgusted by like, I don't remember exactly what it was. Amari figures something out, and then he's just like, ugh, imagine if we were like actually on the same
He's
team. And it's like,
Adele. He is
you could
rolling in the
just
deep.
literally,
He
I'm like, sir, you could be better and then you could be a team. But now your sister has replaced you. So I hate that for you.
must be
Um,
sad.
so yeah, so there's a Kraken, which I don't, it's so funny because like I know that it's danger for them, but it's very exciting for the Kraken to be there. Like I saw it and I was
Speaking
like, the
of
Kraken, let's go. Like,
speaking of a song of ice and fire, it
mm-hmm,
like that is Greyjoy, like the
mm-hmm,
Kraken, like symbol and all
mm-hmm,
whatever. I mean, yeah, like I like. It's funny to me. I'm sorry. It is very funny to me how you are not a horror person, and yet every time we get a monster, you're like, oh yay, a
I
monster, my best
know,
friend.
I know. But I don't want it to be scary. They can just be,
The friendly
I don't know.
monster.
Yeah, they can just exist. They're tight.
They
I don't
just
necessarily want
just
to
trying to
see a
chill.
Kraken. You know what I mean? Like I don't, but
I
like
mean,
shout out to them.
but what if the Kraken is like friendly? They're like, "What's cracking?" Like, what if they're just cracking? What are the
Boom.
comedians? What if they just cracking jokes the whole time? Because they're
I
like,
would
"What
love
else we could
that.
like?"
Be like,
That would be fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I like beasts. I don't know why. Cause yeah, I do not like
And not small beast, like big beast. You
big
like big
beasts.
beast and you
Yeah.
cannot lie.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So this big beast is very angry because he's been disturbed and also hungry. A part of it that I didn't love is that its mouth is an endless pit of giant teeth that rotate like the blades of a chainsaw. So that's terrifying. And so then, so it's about like it picks up the train, it knocks the train car over, and then it like picks it up with its tentacles and is literally about to eat it. Dylan is like, you know what? I can't do this. I'm out. So he dips, and then the glass shatters as soon as he leaves, and so the ring drops on the floor. And so Amari has to like find this ring amidst glass and like all of these little, it's a pretty well furnished room, um while the Kraken has the train car in its jaws. And so uh water is like pouring in, and she finally finds it, jams it onto her finger, squeezes the ring, and she's done. But like, how terrifying.
Finally, this girl learns. As soon as you find it, put it on.
Put it on. She did it last time too. She was like, you know what? So now Dylan has two and she has two. There's only one more challenge, and it's gonna have to be a
She could have had
tiebreaker.
3. It could be
Could
over
have had
already.
three.
She simply would have she wouldn't have had to learn that lesson. If
She
I
wasn't prepared. This is not an excuse. It's more just like her flaws of being empathetic, and not necessarily flaw of being empathetic. Her flaw of like underestimating people's
taking
ambition.
advantage of her.
Yeah, and like what
Yeah.
they will do to win. Like I
Yeah.
think after the second one, because the first one that was all her. Like Dylan wasn't even there.
Yeah.
But that second one, I think it just taught her like, nope, we're done. Like we're
That's
not
gonna
gonna.
always make me salty because I'm like,
That one was out of pocket.
it's like Mulan whenever the guy is crying about like it slipped right through my hands and then like the arrow
Mhm.
just like it lands back
Yeah.
in his hands and he starts the rope and he starts pulling it. I'm like that's what I'm like, it was in your hands. It was
Yep.
just there. You
And it
and
just
it
slipped through your
slipped.
fingers.
And
It
are you
was,
not
yeah.
ashamed? Are you not clearly she is because she's not letting it
Yeah.
happen
She
again.
didn't let it happen again. That's it. That's the last time.
Oh goodness gracious. Oh, yeah. Oh, so another note, I was like, I feel like we're like the way that we're doing commentary on the Great Game, it makes me feel like we're like commentators on a sport where we're just
I
like,
know.
and here goes like Amari's Butterfingers and Dylan with the
Mhm.
slip. Like it's just, and Dylan just piecing out because he got like, he's like, it was so funny to me that this whole conversation, he was like, oh, how long are you gonna, like, what are you gonna do to win? And Amari's like, I'm gonna outlast you. And he was like,
Right.
you really mean that? Like, is that, oh, really? That's where we are? Like,
He
who
said,
are
"That's
you?
it.
Are
Yes,
you dumb?
sir.
What are we?
That's all you really gotta do is just outlast. That's it."
And you're mad that Amari figured out that she just gotta outlast you? Like, are you not serious? That's, you, how are you upset that Amari figured out the only way the way to win is to just outlast you?
Yeah.
I swear. I think it's because he doesn't expect for Amari to say it in that way. He expects for Amari to be like, first of all, nice to him. And I'm like, for what? Like, nice for what? You've
Like
been mean to her. Like,
at this point, she knows what it is. Like, yes, she did just save his life, like not that many hours
mhm.
ago. But I think she also doesn't like it validated what she was thinking about like how their relationship was, but it didn't change that she thinks that she knows that he's like willing to kill her. You know what I mean? Like it was more just like, okay, cool. I wasn't being gaslit the whole time that we were friends, but also I do know that he's dangerous and will still like kill me if he gets the chance.
Like this whole time she's been walking around with the dangerous button on. He's the one who needs a dangerous button, not
Mhm.
her. But it is what it is. And we're here on chapter 33. And so as soon as Mari puts the ring on her finger, she reappears in her dorm room. She's shaking. She's shivering and shaking. And Elsie, being the bestie she is, like, is immediately there with a warm blanket, wraps her up. But sadly, it's just not going to be just a warm and bubbly moment because who is on the phone but the main betrayer herself, Laura Van
Mhm.
Helsing, and Elsie's like, oh yeah, like so I got a call from Laura. She's on the phone right now and she wants to chat. And Amari's like, what? Excuse me? And Elsie's like, let's hear
It's
her
the
out.
it's the whiplash. I'm sorry, like, it's
She just
like,
saw your twin.
you
She
just
just
saw
saw
your
she
twin, and then you're
and the
immediately
Kraken was
coming
just
back,
about her to eat
one treacherous
her.
twin to another, and you haven't had time to, like, process the fact that you almost got ate by a Kraken. Like, it's really not okay.
It's
She
not.
just needs a break.
She's
Can y'all,
Amari is
like,
not okay.
somebody
Amari is
Elsie
not
needs a
okay.
time grenade. Just pause everything for a second. Just so Amari can, like, process, and then you can restart time.
Amari needs a breathe and stop.
Yeah.
She needs stop, let me breathe, pull it
Mhm.
together,
And then we can figure this out.
process. And I think it's like whenever you're reading the book, though, because this is all like when you're just reading the book and you're not like doing episode by episode breakdown and like reading a couple of chapters each time, like this just all goes quickly. So you're like, oh, they're trying to like we're finishing up this book. Like this is the like you said, that's the end game. We're just rolling through it all. But like when you're thinking about the timing of it all, like we've been saying throughout the book of like thinking about like this is 2 hours ago. This was like in the same day. Like this is I think this is probably the closest time I've seen so far of like she just came out of a deadly lethal challenge and then is confronted by a betrayer. Like
Right. And also still has to solve the time freeze. They have I don't know how many hours, but they're trying to solve it before morning. So it's just
and that's what
like
that was the last word she said before she left was about figuring out the time
that.
freeze and she's like right back in
Exactly.
it. Yeah. It's Amari needs I'm like, can Amari get a spa day? Can Amari get a special retreat somewhere? I
Mhm.
want for
Like
her and for
all like
Quentin.
what kind of summer is this, you know?
Stressful.
Mhm.
So Laura takes the time to explain her double cross to Elsie and Amari, basically saying that nothing that she shared with the adults was anything that they wouldn't have been able to figure out on themselves, which is what she figured out. Like she was like, I'm just gonna like share what they already know. They know that we went to the World Congress room. They know that um they can easily go into the Department of Dreams and Nightmares and figure out Dylan's dream and get access to it. Like they don't
And
have
it's
to
not
like
like
get a
Amari was
password, they can
keeping it a
overwrite it.
secret that she was
Yeah.
investigating. Like
Yeah. And then she was like, and I had to give them something to make them feel like Amari had like a motive for like why she was doing it that wasn't just like being tied to being a magician, which is I know what they're going to try to argue. So I just made it clear that you're trying to get Merlin back in here. Like nothing that I did or said was anything that I think it like actually hurts you. And I'm like, it's interesting because I mean, y'all, everybody knows I don't F with Laura. I don't F with any of the Van Helsing. It's whatever. But like Laura clearly having been in the family and around her father and his investigations and the bureau offices of investigations, she's thinking like someone who is an investigator or someone who knows
Mhm.
how to work around cases and stuff. Um and knows what can build a case, what can like exaggerate a case on all of that. And so she's just like playing into like the basics of what she knows will work out, what could work out for Amari if it was to be um put out. So I'm like, I get it, but also
Yeah. And she also
whatever.
says that she was pressured by her dad to like spy on Amari and that initially she declined. Like she was just like, no, like this is my partner. I'm not gonna do that. But that eventually she kind of like had to cave. Which I'm sure like she mentioned like in order to stay a junior agent or whatever, she had to do that. So it's like I feel like she definitely could have told them like, "Hey, my dad has me doing this thing." Like, she could have given them a heads up.
I feel
I
like
think
she should
that
have
was
said
my
that
only
whenever
thing.
she
She
got
should have
the
just been like,
transporter.
"Look, I'm like trying to stay on my dad's good side, but also he wants me to spy on." Because then it's like whatever Lara tells them, then Amari's like, "Okay, yeah."
Yeah, like
You know what I
Amari
mean?
could
Like,
give her consent. It's like everybody
mhm.
joking that they have an FBI, FBI agent or whatever. Like, at least let me have the ability to give consent to whatever it is you're going to like put in the report, like
Right.
bare minimum.
Mhm.
And I think also like it's funny to me that well, funny. Not funny, haha, funny. Like with that, Alara, like it's like she could have really used this in the conversation that they had, like whenever Amari went to the cafeteria, caught her, was talking about like how she saw her with her father in the elevator around the time she got the transporter and how that made her uncomfortable. That would have been a prime time for Lara to just be like, came clean and
Right.
been like,
You could have been
yeah,
like, yes,
and the part of the way that I'm making inroads with my father is by telling him stuff about you. But I'm not telling him any, like, this is exactly what I'm telling him. I'm not telling him all the, like, she could have, that would have been the time. That's would have made a friendship. And that's where I'm like, on Lara. One of the many areas I'm on Lara, but that's one of them. So they decide when they're talking to Lara, it's so fun. Like Lara's like, okay, so while I did return my father's transporter because Elsie and Amari explained to Lara that they need to get into the World Congress room again. Lara says that while she did return her father's transporter, she made sure to take another one while they weren't looking. So she does have a fresh transporter for them to
funny
use.
to me because, sir, you are the head of the Department of Supernatural Investigations, and you can't keep your transporters under security. Like they're
All
not
it
in a
takes is a little bit
secure
of sleight of
location.
hand.
Like the fact that your daughter was able to steal it and transport into the Supernatural World Congress means you need to lock those things up. Like why? Like yeah, okay, she returned it, and you're like, all right, cool, it's fine. No,
Why was she the one to put it there? Like, why were
why
you
would
like?
she?
Why
You
did she
didn't
make it?
take it from
You put
her,
it in your hand and you put it back, right? Why does
right?
she have access to the room?
And then you lock it up. But you know what? I'm not even gonna be that mad because it helps. It helps our girl. But
Yeah,
again, incompetence.
the lack of like incompetence as a director, incompetence as a father, like it
Right,
just
because also like you didn't like he's spending all this time disowning Maria and Dylan, but he didn't think that like, oh, the reason I don't know this is because I don't keep track of my kids. So maybe I should keep track of Lara and what she's doing.
or talk to my kids
And like see
about
what they're
my
like what
mom.
they're up to when they do things that they maybe shouldn't be doing. Talk to them, you know what I mean? Like figure out wait, like nope, he was just like my parenting is not the problem. I'm not the common denominator here. It's magicianship. It's you, Van Helsing, you're the problem.
I feel like this is again the counseling. The counseling question of like what yeah. Yeah. So Laura's like, I got the transport device you need. Elsie and Amari are like, okay. So, and this is where like they're like, oh my gosh, Elsie kind of moment because Elsie calls the Rafts who escorted them to their room and are now guarding their dorm room door, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And so now Amari and Elsie are like, and Laura are like, oh girl, so you're throwing shade now?
Right?
This is a new side to you. I didn't
Literally.
realize we were going there.
That's so
Um,
funny.
it is funny. And so they're like, we have to dip out of here without them noticing. So they have to like stage a dorm break. So they figure out how to make commotion in their room using one of Elsie's devices. And Amari casts an illusion on them and they make it a run for it. They break out for it. And there's a crowd that starts accumulating outside their dorm room. And as they're trying to run away, they run straight smack into Bertha. And Bertha's like, and Amari loses the illusion immediately after she hit. Like, it's like,
She just needs more practice.
she
I also wondered why they
stealth
didn't
mode
like
Amari is not
why she
it's not a
didn't
thing.
put an illusion like to have like make it seem like Amari and Elsie were still in their room
We're still there.
because it's like obvious. I mean, the invisibility helps because like nobody can see where they're going, but also like they could know that you haven't left, but it's fine.
Yeah. Uh whatever.
This is all like they're doing it live, so I'm not like
Yeah.
too
They've done yeah. It's not surprising because they've done everything live. So
they've
it's
done
like,
everything
okay.
live, but this in
Yeah.
particular, they're on a clock, so I get it.
It's improv. It's just yes and.
Mhm.
Yes and. Okay. So Bertha just shakes her head. Like again, this is like good-natured Bertha. So she just shakes her head and I think it's really funny. And I just want to, I wondered if this is part of why she took on this job because I'm like, was she a troublemaker? Because the way she says of like to them, she's like, y'all have a very like just a clear lack of imagination when it comes to like breaking out of things and like
Right.
actually like wandering about and not being in your rooms. Like, y'all have not. She's like, I've like heard it all before, seen it all before. This is not anything of like
It's not
interest.
special.
It's not like, where is the cleverness? Where is the creativity? And I just, for me, that's just funny because it's like I can I can understand wanting a challenge of like, at least let me leave something to the imagination. Make me be
Right,
like,
like,
oh
let
shoot, how
me
did
keep
they
me on
figure
my
that one out?
toes.
Yeah. I'm
Not
like,
you're
this
invisible
is
and you run into me, like
you right straight into me. And I'm like, I just need to know of what if they included Bertha in their plans and strategies, what Bertha would be like, she's like, no, 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 no. Let's take it back from the top. Okay, so what you need to do is go from here. I would just love to see if Bertha was like in part of it.
literally, because
Like back
girl,
in 2005, we had some kids that do this, so I would definitely not do that one again. Like,
I've seen that one before.
yeah. So they get past, they Bertha lets them pass. They get over to Laura's room. And who would have thunk? Not only is Shadow there minding his P's and Q's and not getting into anything simply because Jaden was like, "Ayo, bro, don't." And that's all. The Shadow was just chilling.
Shadow said bet.
And then also, Amari takes a moment to apologize to Laura, which again, not necessary. Amari's too good for the world. And so calls Laura a friend, which Laura takes like she takes a pause, a beat, and like feels that like being called a friend by Amari, and says that like she'll feel good knowing that like if everything happens next ends up with her in trouble, that at least she did it all for being a friend. And I'm just like, girl, what?
She needs
We just
real
call
friends.
anybody friends now. I
mean, yes, but Laura also needs real friends. She's never had a real friend before. Maybe she'll learn.
This is what real friendship
Learn
looks
something
like.
from this.
Yes. Hopefully. So that is a moment. I'm sure it's cute to people. But they get to the World Congress.
Not the people.
It's two people. To this people,
So
no. But two people, I'm sure it's to people that is heartwarming to them. And immediately as they arrive at their destination, there is panic at the World Congress room as Elsie and Laura are immediately captured.
The alarms pop off. Like the alarms go off this time. So it's like before they weren't tracking, and then there was a break-in. They said, "Oh wait, we need to put our security back on." Which I'm like, y'all.
It was like before, because we know the answer of like before they wasn't really trying to do an investigation there. They didn't think anyone was going to unsettle it because they're like, no one's going to go in there because we told them that Bane said no. So all they need is that Bane said no. Bane said no. No one's going to go in there. But now they're like, well, the kids like to sneak in here, so now we got to put alarms in. Dumb.
Immediately.
But immediately, Elsie and Laura are caught, and because no one else can move around in the time freeze, Amari's taking advantage of her ability to do so, and she's wandering about, looking down the floors, looking in the windows, looking on the walls, trying to find this time stone. And she has a moment where she recalls, like, not only it's not just criminals that like to take trophies off of their people that they pull things on. So do the people who are on quote unquote the right side of the law. They like to keep trophies of things too. And she realizes, Merlin may be the one, like he may not trust the time stone to be safeguarded by anyone but himself. So perhaps it's on Merlin. So this is where we learn and figure out that the time freeze culprit has been Merlin all along.
Dun, 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 dun.
It's been Merlin all along. And I enjoy that Amari was able to come to that realization and that she was completely right, 100% correct.
And it's a really good plot twist that I frankly forgot. I was like, I know it's in there, but I don't remember who.
I don't remember the size of it. I don't remember what it was doing. I just know it's in there somewhere.
Oh yeah, it's such a good plot twist.
Yeah. And what's funny to me is that of course, when Amari figures this out, she starts touching up on the man to find
she's like patting him down.
Like, where's the stone? And then she finds it on like in a secreted pocket, like, and as soon as she pulls it off of him, like she sees things start moving in the like
Mhm.
the wings or whatever,
Time
which
starts to, like,
move
move
again for
again.
them. And the things that were like before were hidden, the unseen dangers are now
Mhm.
apparent. And this is like a slight spoiler, but they're wraiths. So
Yeah.
they had blinked out whenever at the time that the freeze, they'd blinked out and they weren't able to be seen. But now that the time is moving again, they've blinked in and you can see them.
Mhm.
And so
And I love the way that I literally had to, like, I was just like, I need to, because I could not remember. So it was like,
yeah.
it ends where she just turns around, and I'm like, first of
Yeah.
all,
I was like,
Mr.
nah. I
Austin.
was like, let me that's I was like, let me read a couple
I
more
just said,
pages.
let me just look at the next page and
I was like,
see
let me
what
go
does
on.
she see again? Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So I'm like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna leave me on a
I knew
cliffhanger.
I knew it was Bane and Harlow, but I was like, what was I'm like,
What was
I
it?
can't
Yeah,
remember
I was
how
like,
it
I
all came
couldn't remember how
together.
they did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so funny to me because like so as soon as the like they pop into view again, Merlin's like, little girl, go pass me on that one right
He
back.
said, give it
Give it
right
right
back.
back to me. And I just love that like the fact of the matter is that like he happened to have the time stone on him when the Fire Nation attacked.
Right.
Like he was like, nope. That's my get out of jail free card. That's my little
Mhm.
like this is my avatar right here in my pocket. Um and it's so funny to me that Merlin sees like like Merlin sees what's happening before Amari does because she's looking at him. So he's like, nope. And so Amari doesn't realize what's happening until she turns around and then she's like,
Yeah.
oh. And that's
And
when
it
we
also
end the
reveals to the
chapter.
people who are standing outside as well.
Yeah.
Like, everyone can see this happening, and so they see them flicker back into, like, visibility or whatever, and it just it changes the, like,
Whole
picture of what's
dynamic.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo! It's a good chapter.
Yeah.
This it's very stressful,
I love
but
when a mystery, like whenever the detective comes through and like it's like I love whenever the mystery component is like oh and you're like ooh
mhm. Because it's
that's not what
like
I
you
thought
suspect
happened.
people, like, you know that they're bad, but you don't know
Mhm,
necessarily that, like, you can't figure out what they're trying to hide, and, like, what they're actually hiding is not what you expected either, so it's
mhm.
just like, it's not just, "Oh, you just want power," like, it is that, but it's like, how much are you, like, what's the word? Like, how much are you behind the scenes, like, pulling strings and stuff?
Yeah, and like what is like your level of involvement and like impact? Like I know the impact, but like what? How far were you involved in the different parts of this? Like were you only
Mhm.
like the person who was like the supply? Were you an accomplice or were you a full blown like culprit? Like what
Right.
was happening in all this? Yeah.
Mhm. Um, cool. So we're at the end. Who is your MVP?
It was Merlin for having that thing on him. Like that is foresight. That is like always being on ready. And I like
Yeah.
constant vigilance to a level that I would not think of. And again, whenever I got here, I was like, oh shoot, Merlin had that thing on him, and that's
Yeah.
why he's not dead. That's the only reason why this man ain't dead. Okay.
Mhm.
Man elf.
Yeah.
Woodland elf. That's the only reason why this person isn't dead. Oh,
Yep.
okay. Yeah.
I did Bertha, but mostly because while I'm still skeptical of her and I'm like not really sure what's up, Amari didn't have any other adults looking out for her in these chapters, and she like explicitly notices and clocks it. And
Mm.
so like shout out to Bertha for being an adult with some sense and who's actually like looking out for these kids. Um instead of just like letting Bane and Harlow kind of like walk all over her and,
And the
yeah.
Wraiths who like
And the
are
Wraiths
already
too,
destroying
yeah.
everything. Yeah. But
Exactly.
also she was literally that one. She's literally that one adult. Like
Mhm.
it's
The only one that
yeah.
was like, "Okay, no, these are children, and so I'm not gonna just let them be treated this way." And also, like, I know they're doing some stuff they're not supposed to be doing, but Imma let them go. Cause how about that?
She's one of one. She's the
Mm,
only one.
so yeah. So shout out to Bertha.
She's the true
Um,
alien superstar of this chapter.
exactly.
Of this episode.
Binged.
I benched Bane because as soon as I realized what she saw were race, I was like, oh shoot,
Yeah, he's gotta go.
that's what's behind this shenanigan. And he definitely deserves every little bite of it. The way that he, again, the pettiness of like finally feeling like he has dirt to put on Amari to get her up out of there because he wants to get like his whole bigotry against magicians thing. I just I can't. And then he like to have that line about can't change a tiger's stripes, and I'm like, bro, you're talking about a 13-year-old girl. If you don't
Right.
get out of my face,
But it's also
ooh,
like he's doing all of that because he knows that he's like he has to get rid of Amari and he can't let her finish that investigation in order to like stay in power. So it's like all like same with Harlow, like shifting that story
narrative.
and changing
Yeah,
the narrative so that it fits them and what they want.
and it's funny too because he was saying that like whenever it got revealed, like whenever the reveal was that like she wanted Merlin to be the like it's not prime minister,
Prime,
whatever.
yeah. So like we,
Is it
yeah.
minister?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like whenever she wanted like that he was like, oh, that's sad, that's annoying, but he's like, but we had to do something deeper than that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
bro,
It's got to be
like
that you're bad.
right, and I'm like, because that if Amari's whole campaign strategy, like there's other people who'd be like, yeah, nah, I'm also down with Bane being taken out, like she
Mm-hmm.
has a point, people are
Exactly.
also ready to
Are
get
there
you out of
people
there.
who will like be who will back her?
And there's plenty as soon as the shenanery is revealed, if the investigation proceeds, there's plenty of evidence and reason to get you up out of there. So
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it's just for him. But then I also benched director Van Helsing because he is like incompetent father, incompetent like director. He seriously was like, I just need for my daughter to be like one of my children has to be in the bureau and in my department and
Mm-mm.
all of this. And so like even the things that I tell my department is true, like, you're also always supposed to have your partner's back and all that doesn't apply
Right.
if I'm bigoted. Like
Mm-hmm.
need
And
at all
also, if I
apply to that.
need something from you,
Yeah.
your loyalty is first to me and what I need before it's to your partner. Um, yeah. I benched the same. I also added Harlow, just the three of them, but for all the reasons that we've said. Um, I was trying not to do more than one, but then I was just like, no, they all have to sit. Like, it is what it is.
Then I didn't do Harlow this chapter because I'm like, Harlow's gonna do that thing
She
next
is.
episode, and
She's
I'm so
definitely
ready to go in on her for
she's
that.
definitely, yeah. Absolutely. That's it for this chapter. It was kind of a fast recording, but thank you for listening. And join us next week when we discuss chapters 34 through 36. That's the final chapter,
The
our final
final
episode
countdown.
for these chapters. We're about to like get to the end, which is wild. Yeah. Make sure you're voting for MVP and Benched. The link is in the show notes, or if you go to like our Instagram or whatever, it's in the link in our bio. You can go and like add from previous episodes that we've discussed, or even just for this one and then the next. We want to know your votes so that when we tally up for our like wrap up episode, we can like say who won and lost the book.
And I definitely want to see what other people's tallies have been. Like I know what we voted on, but I'd love to see
Right.
what other people have been putting in. Don't forget that Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out everything at our website, blacknerdscreate.com, and also follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create. We have plenty of fun things and projects and podcasts to join and listen to there. So please do that.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.